So hello everyone, I'm Shafiq and now I'm gonna explaining the introduction of our assignment whereby the country that we choose, which is the Philippines. Okay, first of all, for every country in the world such as the Philippines, basically there are public policies that be implemented by their government. In general, this public policy can be defined as the core of guidance or general goals for the public or the people for the benefits of society at large. Okay, this public policy will also directly or indirectly affect the economic sector. Government policy change the inputs and incentive for individual economic decisions. It has microeconomic consequence. So basically, every country has their public policy that has been set by their own government. Hence, it might be different for every of the country. Tax reform, monetary policy, rules, tariff, incentive, legal tender legislation, license, and public-private alliance are all examples of adjustment, or to name a few. Okay. In the microeconomic aspect, the study of economics affect activities as a whole that involves the provision of economics variables such as a national income, employment, and inflation and balance of payments. Okay, economics variables are statistical data on economic activity that used in measuring tools to assess the economic whether increasing or decreasing. A bit fact about economic of Philippines. The Philippines has the 34th largest economy in the world with an estimated 2017 gross nominal domestic product of USD 384,593 billion. Okay, among the major exports include semiconductor and electronic, transport equipment, clothing, copper products, petroleum products, coconut oil, and fruits. But there is no denying that the Philippines is also facing the problem of inflation and unemployment at a fairly high level, which is the Philippines inflation highest in the Asian, nearly reaches 7%, while the unemployment rate in the Philippines has hit 10% so far, in addition to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic that is plaguing in the world.
Hi, I'm INTAN IRYANIE, so I'm going to talk about the public policy in the Philippines as well as the fiscal policy and monetary policy. So, what is public policy? In any society, governmental entities enact laws, make policies, and allocate resources. This is true at all levels. Public policy can be generally defined as a system of laws, regulatory measures, courses of actions, and funding priorities concerning a given topic promulgated by a governmental entity or its representative. Public policy is a course of action created and or enacted typically by a government in response to public real-world problems. Beyond this broad definition, public policy has been conceptualized in a variety of ways. A popular way of understanding and engaging in public policy is through a series of stages known as the policy cycle. The characterization of particular stages can vary, but a basic sequence is agenda setting, formulation, legitimation, implementation, and evaluation. Fiscal policy is defined as government actions used to stabilize the economy, especially through altering the amounts and allocations of taxes and government spending. So fiscal policy is commonly used in conjunction with monetary policy to achieve certain aims. This is defined in the Philippines by constant and growing levels of debt and budget deficits. However, there have been improvements in recent years. Taxes are the primary source of revenue for the Philippine government. However, some non-tax revenue is also collected. The Philippines relies on both local and overseas sources to finance its budget imbalance and debt. Fiscal policy is commonly used in conjunction with monetary policy to achieve certain aims, and during the Marcos administration, fiscal policy was largely concerned with indirect tax collection and government spending on economic services and infrastructure development. The first Aquino government inherited a huge budget deficit from the previous administration, but it was able to decrease fiscal imbalance and enhance tax collection by implementing the 1986 tax reform program and the value-added tax. In its early years, the Ramos administration has budget surpluses as a result of large earnings from the huge sale of government assets and strong foreign investment. However, the execution of the 1997 Comprehensive Tax Reform Program, as well as the advent of the Asian financial crisis, resulted in a worsening fiscal condition in subsequent years and administration. It is because of the decline in tax revenue and the settlement of the Ramos government debt to contractors and suppliers. The Estrada administration faced a huge fiscal deficit. The expanded value-added tax law was passed under the Arroyo administration. The national debt to GDP ratio peaked and underinvestment in public infrastructure and other capital and expenditures was seen. Monetary policy is the monitoring and regulation of the money supply by central banks, such as the Federal Reserve Board in the United States or the Bangko Sentral ang Pilipinas in the Philippines. The government does this to control inflation and stabilize the currency. Monetary policy is one of the two ways the government may impact the economy, the other being fiscal policy, which makes uses of government spending and taxes. So monetary policy is typically defined as the process through which the central bank or government manages the supply and availability of money, the cost of money, and the interest rate. So contractionary monetary and fiscal policies used in response to inflation and current account deficits in the Philippines during the 1980s and 1990s were excessively pro-cyclical, aggravating and deepening recessions and downturns, and easing only when the economy showed an improvement in inflation and current account balances.
Hello, my name is NATALYN and I will be presenting the problems and methods to overcome inflation in the Philippines. The inflation problem that the Philippines is experiencing is known as cost-push inflation, which occurs when an increase in the cost of production reduces accurate supply, resulting in the price increase. The reason for this is due to natural resource exhaustion. As the main resource becomes scarce, the accurate supply curve shifts to the left, causing price to increase. The Philippines is facing a shortage of pig meat after the outbreak of the African swine fever virus. The country has been suffering from food security issues since the outbreak, as over a third of the country's pig stocks have been affected by the disease, leading to food shortages. The shortage of pork has caused a price increase in a variety of foods as a result of the accurate supply and transportation costs. Next is methods to overcome inflation. The first method is rationing and price control. The government can do this because they have the power to directly control the prices of certain goods. Rationing is used to keep the price of scarce goods. Meanwhile, price control is used to keep the overall price level low. The government will be able to maintain price stability for scarce goods and avoid further inflationary increases by implementing this method. Aside from that, they will be able to protect consumers' interests by supplying scarce goods at controlled prices and producers' interests by guaranteeing minimum prices for specific goods. Anti-hoarding campaigns should also be used to discourage producers and consumers from stockpiling goods, as stockpiling can lead to an artificial shortage of goods, driving up prices. Next is implementing supply-side policies to boost long-term productivity and competitiveness. Government policies aimed at increasing productivity and efficiency in the economy are known as supply-side policies. Supply-side policies can help to reduce inflationary pressures, but they will take time to work and will not be able to prevent a sharp rise in inflation. However, it will still help to reduce cost-push inflation and making the economy more efficient. Lastly, increasing savings is also another way to combat inflation. This is done in order to reduce disposable income and as a result, personal consumption spending.
To Madam and friends, I am CHRYSTO and I will present the problems and methods to overcome unemployment in the Philippines. Now, what is unemployment and underemployment? Unemployment is a term referring to individuals who are employable and actively seeking a job but are unable to find a job. Meanwhile, underemployment is the underuse of a worker because a job does not use the worker's skills, is part-time, or leaves the worker idle. Now, what causes this unemployment in the Philippines? First, changes in demand across sectors. Second, jobs that are currently in high demand may require skills that the unemployed lack. Third, skills for previously in-demand positions were already available in the workforce. Fourth, constant supply of graduates outpaces the rate at which jobs are produced, leaving graduates jobless. Now we will look into how to overcome unemployment in the Philippines. The public authorities in Philippines had already addressed this issue by investing in education and health, for example, reforms of senior high schools and a conditional cash transfer scheme.